Well, it is officially 7:30. So we'll officially begin our practice. We're moving through this. We're almost to the end of book 2. Today we are on Sutra 250, 2.50. And we're continuing to talk about prana and pranayama. This is such a good one, and I feel like it's, for me, a good one for this time of year. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. So the sutra itself, the translation says, the modifications of the life breath are either external, internal, or stationary. They are to be regulated by space, time, and number, and are either long or short. Okay, so I'm going to read it again and point out some things. The modifications of the life breath are either external, internal, or stationary. So he calls it life breath. He doesn't say breath because he wants to be clear, as far as I can tell, that it's prana. Like, breath is more than just air coming in and out. It's our life breath. And the way he refers to external, internal, or stationary here is exhaling, breathing out, inhaling, breathing in, or holding, retaining the breath. And he says these can all be regulated by space, which is where in your body you're holding or witnessing the breath. Time, how long you inhale or exhale or hold. Number, how many times you do it. And then they're either long or short. So your exhales and inhales can be long or short. So just without even reading his interpretation around, like, okay, so now what? What do we do? What I love about this sutra is that it gives us variables to play with and to explore and use as research in our practice. And there are patterns that cause common experiences, but I think each of us, the same way asana is individual, our own breath practices need to be done from a mindful place where we're like, okay, this is creating the effect that I'm aiming for. So after some experimentation, it's like, oh, I need to calm myself down. How do I do that? What are the breath patterns that create that for me? Or, oh, I need to wake myself up, or I need to ground myself, or I need to focus. So all of the things that we want to create in terms of mind states, the prana can help us do that if we learn to control it. So, he gives a few warnings. He says, be careful about retention and be careful in general. So the normal flowing breath, if we're taking it at a gross level, it's a straight inhale and exhale without holding. When we practice pranayama, we introduce retention. And he says the safest place to do that is starting with after the inhalation. So you breathe in and you retain the breath. And you breathe out and go right into the next inhalation. Over time, adding retention after exhalation can also be beneficial. So last week we did alternate nostril breathing, which is a practice that typically, the way we did it last week, and typically the way it's taught, especially for beginners, is it's an even count. You inhale and exhale without any lengthening or retaining of the breath. And that, the term for that is samavriti. So it's the same is the way I'll describe it. So you breathe in, same. He also talks in this sutra in the description about a ratio of 1 to 2. So that practice, you breathe in for a count of, let's say, 4, and you breathe out for double that. So that would be a count of 8. And then finally in the description, he says, well, I'll read the whole last paragraph because I think there's some really good points in here. Sukha Purvaka is the easy, comfortable breathing with an inhalation-exhalation ratio of 1 to 2, starting with 5 counts in, 10 counts out, and gradually increasing the count to 10 to 20. After practicing this for a while, we can add some retention. Inhale for 10 counts, retain for 5, exhale for 20. Blah, blah, blah. From that point on, the number of pranayamas we do can be increased. Okay? Sometimes people read a 1:4:2 ratio in a yoga book and immediately start trying to do that. He says this can be unhealthy and dangerous. It's not the ratio with which you practice this pranayama that will help you, but the amount of pranayama that you do at a stretch. And finally, he says, so even without retention, if we can do 30 or 40 nadi suddhis at a stretch, it will be very beneficial. So nadi suddhi is technically translated as using the technique of breath to create stability in the body. Nadi Shodhana, which is the alternate nostril breathing that we did last week, is one form of nadi suddhi. Samavriti is another form of nadi suddhi. So the pranayamas that ground and stabilize us are nadi suddhi. And he's saying that we can work up to 30 or 40 of those. So that's the practice that I'm going to invite us into today. So all this talking to say, we're going to breathe. And I'm going to invite us into a breath of between 30 and 40 nadi suddhis. When I do my breath, both just a kind of conscious, like an ujjayi breath that I'll do in my practice, or when I'm sitting and doing these practices, each breath is 10 to 12 seconds for me. That's like a comfortable, not agitating, but not too short of a breath. So by that math, if a breath is, let's say, 10 seconds, 30 rounds would be 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes. Your breath is not the same as my breath. So I'm going to invite us when we go into this, for you to find a grounding, steady breath without retention, whether you're doing alternate nostril breathing, if that's your preference, or just like an ujjayi breath, or evenly breathing into a count of 4 and breathing out to a count of 8. And we'll do it for 5 to 6 minutes. Okay, so if your breath is shorter or longer, we're still going to be around the 30 count. Does that make sense? Okay, I'll do a little guiding at the beginning to give you sort of some ideas of where to go with this, but I'm really, after a minute or so, going to leave you into your own practice so that you can be in creating your pranayama. Okay, so let's begin with creating our posture. I'm looking at my watch because I have a timer that I can set for 6 minutes. Before you begin, start by grounding into your body, creating your seat. Noticing your feet. Doing something on purpose with your hands. Bring your attention to your breath as it is. So before we begin controlling the breath and practicing a formal pranayama, just observing your breath as it is. Perhaps you count the pattern of your natural breath just as an observation. How is my breath right now? Staying with a natural version of your breath, notice your body and how it moves or feels as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Now start to practice samavriti, breathing in for the same length, counting in your head, and breathing out for that same amount of time. Stick with the same count for a few rounds of your breath, just as a way to observe, a way to do some research. If you feel like there's space for a longer, deeper breath, start by cultivating samavriti with a longer breath in and the same length on the breath out. Continue with this practice if it feels stable and good. Or perhaps you start to lengthen your exhalations to a 1-to-2 ratio. Breathing in, for example, to a count of 4, and out to a count of 8. Find a count that works for your body to create alert and relaxed state of being. To come back to a natural, unregulated state. Just your body breathing itself. Bring an awareness to how you feel, both physically and otherwise. Notice how a breath in feels in your body. And how the breath out feels in your body. Notice how a fuller breath in feels in your body. And a fuller breath out. Stay with the fuller breath, with your awareness of the sensation, instead of trying to count. So creating longer breaths just by observing your body and its sensations. Creating an awareness without a busyness. If you enjoy the practice of a longer exhale, create that without counting. Just allow your body to shift into that pattern through awareness. Keeping your mind aware and tethered to your breath, but not gripping. Releasing any formal pranayama practice, allowing your body to come into its natural breath. Bringing awareness to how you feel right now. Taking a deeper, fuller breath, a clearing breath. And one more time. And then opening your eyes. So a little bit more from his teaching. He speaks to discipline. He says, by regulating the prana, we regulate our minds because the two always go together. Control and discipline are very necessary in our lives. Without discipline, nothing can be achieved. He explains the whole world functions in a regulated, orderly way. If everything were merely haphazard, no great scientific inventions could be possible. If the sun, moon, and earth didn't rotate in a disciplined way, how could calculations be made to send up a rocket? I consider that an invitation to be disciplined in our practices, especially of things like pranayama and asana and meditation, all of these things that help us be good in the world. Because the world is hard. And we have the tools. And they don't work if we don't practice. Any insights or questions or comments?
Turn my video on.
Let's see if I can do that for you. Ask to start video. There you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, it's good to see you guys. I've missed you. And I'll see you next week, if not sooner.
Welcome back.
It's good to be home.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Say hi to Mom. And
I will.
James. And
I will.
Amy. And all the kids.
I will. You look great. Nice to see you.
It's good to be home.